abundantly blessed. When asked to give this reflection, I, like many others I'm sure, struggled upon which part of my journey that I would like to share. My life has been so richly blessed, and I have always been raised to believe that God is good all of the time, and all of the time, God is good. That phrase was a mantra in my mother's vernacular, which I recall hearing for most of my life. Aside from being raised by caring Christian parents, I was raised in the church in a small town in North Carolina. I am, in fact, a PK, otherwise known as a preacher's kid. My father has been a minister for all of my life, and we recently celebrated his 50th year in the ministry. I loved being a preacher's kid, and I loved going to church. For me, the members of our church were like family. Since the church that I grew up in was located 45 minutes from our home, our Sunday started early and often lasted all day long. My mom began our day by cranking up gospel music that we'd hear throughout our home. Then, at 9:00 a.m., we began our ride to Mitchell's Chapel, AME Zion Church. We would often sing in 3 or 4-part harmony most of the way there. I was brought up learning Bible verses and attending Sunday school. Even as a very young child, I participated in Bible memory contests and sang in the church choir. I was surrounded by wonderful people of faith, people who made me feel supported and loved. I was then, and still I am, abundantly blessed. I accompanied my parents on visits to the sick and shut-in, to weddings, funerals, and all types of church services and programs. My mother was director of the Christian Education Department, which helped to shape and grow in faith and ministry the youth and children throughout our church district. I always felt guided by God's hand and by his plan, knowing that all things work for the good of those who love God, to those who are called according to his purpose. Over time, however, there was a shift in my family. As I prepared to graduate from college, my parents were going through a divorce. I was devastated. I was sad, embarrassed, and furious. Our family had long been held as an example. Where was our collective faith? My parents had never prepared me for this in any way. We became the subject of whispered rumors. I didn't ever want to return to our church, an ill-conceived decision. My mother and father parted. My mother seemed bitter, while my father masked his emotions. I felt alone. Then, after completing college, I received a job offer in Charlotte, North Carolina. Upon hearing this, a college roommate's family invited me to live with them. I could hear my mom saying, "A ram in the bush," a biblical reference from the story of Abraham and Isaac that signifies how the Lord puts something in your path to help you. This family anchored me and made me feel safe and supported. God was still there. Over the years, we all adjusted except for my mom. It seemed to be the one area that she couldn't overcome. No amount of conversation or prayer seemed to release her bitterness and incredulity of the situation. She seemed stuck, and I was resigned that this would never change. Then illness set in. My mother was hospitalized and needed assistance. I brought her up from North Carolina to help her as she recovered, except she never recovered. Over her 2 years in Connecticut, she had over 20 hospitalizations and 5 rehabilitation stays. I admired her attitude, her faith, how she never asked why, but continued to proclaim that God is good. About 3 Thanksgivings ago, Mama was done. Her body had put up a good fight, but she was entered into hospice care. She was in the hospital for the last time, and as we were preparing to bring her back home for her final days, my father came to visit. He asked about my mother, and he wondered if it would be all right to visit her. I thought it would be. My mother wasn't always lucid during this time, so I wasn't really sure what she would say. And then, and I'm using one of my mother's phrases, God both showed up and showed out. My dad said, "Hi, Betty. Do you know who I am?" And my mother said, "Yes, I know it's you, Franklin Rush. I knew you would come. I knew you would come." We spent the next hour reminiscing on the good times. They shared wonderful stories and spoke of what we meant to each other. I couldn't have asked for a better gift for all of us, ever. At this moment, we were healed, and once again, I was abundantly